Hello, editing me here. The first 20 minutes or so of this had no mic audio recorded. That was fun to find out. But this time, it wasn't because I had muted myself and forgotten about it. It was because my audio interface decided to, you know, why bother? Take a day off. So, yeah. So now I gotta fill 20 minutes here of mostly fighting the same group of dryads repeatedly and also saving Churchill repeatedly because he's a lot braver than me and runs headfirst into battle. And I don't know how many times I've ended up getting myself killed. I was like, oh, I can't let poor Churchill suffer anymore, even though he's not actually real. And then I run in and try and give him the injection, and whatever was kicking his butt turns out kicks my butt as well, because I'm a lot weaker than Churchill is. So instead, we're gonna talk about banks. Yeah, the money lending institution. It'll make sense at the end of the video. Don't worry, or do worry. Far from it from me to tell you how to live your life. What I wanted to bring up was the pens in banks that still in this modern age of buy and throw out are freaking chained, and it's not. It's like the only place that does this, but they only do it halfway because it's not chained to the furniture or the wall. It's chained to a tiny stand. Now, you might be thinking, well, yeah, because you can't easily slip that into your pocket. And I get that. But I feel like the kind of person who would do something as foolish as stealing from a surveillance bank would be the kind of person who wouldn't care that you see them walking out with the pen on the little stand. Because, they have to, because it's a bank with surveillance they were robbing. Well, yeah, it's still robbing, right? Wait, no. Does robbing or robbery involve some sort of threat? Do they have to be like a can you passively rob someone, or is that just theft then? I, mm, this is why I'm not a lawyer. It's not like these are premium pens or anything. They're not engraved. They're not fountain pens. They're not made of rare materials. Meanwhile, if you want a writing device that's just as good, if not better, albeit a pencil and short, you can grab a whole handful of them in IKEA for free. Then you won't get arrested for it. And you can pick up a free paper measuring tape while you're there. Like I said, I know those are pencils and not pens, and therefore assumingly made out of cheaper materials, but I raise you the fact that the banks do give out something for free. All those little forms you fill out for deposits and withdrawals, do you still do that? I don't even know. It's been a while. They have like carbon paper in them to make a copy, so you could take as many of those as you want because they're free, and they're not chained to anything. So now you have a stack of paper with half or a third of it being carbon paper. You could literally take them, separate them, roll the carbon paper into a tube, roll the regular paper around it, and bang! Now you have a pencil that's bigger than the IKEA pencil and costs you as much. Nothing. But this is all printed paper. It has the bank's logo and details and yada yada yada. And the carbon paper, I presume, is more expensive than pensile graphite, which means that by giving away these free DIY pencils, even though they don't, pay you for your labor, they're spending more on them than IKEA is doing with their free pencils. And yet, with these free DIY pencils available, they choose to chain up the cheap pens that aren't engraved, aren't fountain pens, aren't made from rare materials. It's not like banks famously make a ton of money from being allowed to use our money to increase their profits. I know, I know. Oh, but you get interest off them being allowed to borrow money to play with it. Well, unless you're like rich, which if you are, congrats, love that for you. But if you're not, then the amount of money you'll be getting extra is like a pittance. Do you even notice the change on your account? Unless you're putting in an exact even amount, do you even notice the few cents that trickle in every year? Which is why you should be spending all of your money instead of saving any of it, just to show them your independence. Heck, gamble it all away to really show your stoicism about it. Don't do that. Save money, kids. It's smart. I'm being facetious for comedic effect. See, when I give you bad advice, at least I tell you it's bad advice instead of giving it to you, and then you have to find out later that I profited off the choices I influenced you to do. Yes, I'm a hero. Don't worry, I know. Just like with so many other things, I do wonder how something started. Like usually we state a more general POV of things like this, like banks were first introduced in year something something. But that's not what I want to hear about. It's not something that just sprung into existence. There has to be the first person to think of it and create it. Someone in the history of us has to have been the first person. And how did they get that to work? Hey friends, how about I safe keep all of your valuables, and anytime you want, you can just come back to me and get them. But if you let me keep them for a little longer, well, then I won't just give you your stuff back. I will give you like an extra little shiny rock on top of it. How's that sound? Why on earth would you do that, Steve? What do you get out of it? Well, I'm gonna invest it elsewhere, and You're gonna go gambling with our gems and gold, aren't you? No, no, of course not, Steve. It's not gambling. I have a system. That sort of thing always intrigues me, the idea that in the history of humanity, there has to be someone who was the first to do something, and all their names and history are just, well, lost to history? Lost to time. Like, the first person to name a ball. I know it wouldn't have been in English, obviously, but I'll do it for our thought experiment. Someone has to have been the first person in history to have gone, this thing shall be known as a ball. What? This spherical object. We're gonna call it a ball. What the hell is a spherical object? That's advanced words. Don't worry about that for now. We'll get there eventually. Well, I wanted to call him a cat. That doesn't make any sense. Ball sounds round and sometimes bouncy. Cat sounds like a beast. Like those wolves you thought you could train. Hey, I was really close to turning them into dogs, I'll have you know. You can't have several names for the same thing. That's just confusing. No, if it's wild, it's wolves. If it's pacified, it's dogs. So if I pacified a tiger, I could call it a cat. What's a tiger? One of those things behind you? Okay, I think our RP has gone on a little tangent there. This is me, by the way. Actually, not me, the character that was just speaking, trying to, like, make this into some sort of meta-narrative. Me, as in the one who's recording this afterwards. But speaking of which me is me, I think we've actually arrived at where the audio actually returns, so I'll hand you back over to myself, and hopefully we won't have to meet again like this. What? What do you mean we're barely half through the time we need to fill? Already a stretch to talk about banks and pens, just cause at the end of the vid we searched through a bank. Yeah, that's the whole reason for all of that nonsense. I had to pick something to riff on. I guess the obvious thing would have been dryads, but I know even less about dryads than I do about banks and their economics of stationery. Apparently I have something similar here called ro, R and a A with a dot above it. But I haven't really like heard much about them. It's like a warden spirit. For example, Skogsrå would be one who lures people into the forest, never to be seen again. But apparently, if a man has intercourse with her, he'd become an introvert because his soul was left with her. So I guess that's how you make it so that you'd be seen again. But hopefully, you're not so much of an introvert that you don't want to be seen anymore. You know, it's a complicated situation to find yourself in. Fun fact, there is at least one confirmed case of someone getting sentenced and executed for having sex with such a creature. It was hunter and a fisherman in the 1600s. Because like, he moved in both environments. There's a bit uncertainty if it was a skogsrå, a forest warden, or if it was a sjörå, which protects water. They'd reward and protect those that were kind to them and their water. But if you weren't, well, as most water spirit stories goes, you know what would befall them. The pantheon of Nordic creatures do confuse me a bit, because when I think of sjörå, I also think of Näcken, which could take on different forms, so I assume they'd be able to take on female as well, which they might have, but it seems less common. I'm just thinking that like the easiest way to entice people to go drowning is to be a beautiful woman. I think Näcken is more famous than Sjöron, and not just because it's what the siege operator Nök is named after, but because I guess they get like better publicity. I'm not entirely certain the reason. I mean, maybe because of like the description. Usually they'd appear as a naked man playing a violin. You know, the classic, oh my goodness, this music is incredible. I better like, cue drowning. But Näcken could also transform into a horse. But we already have something called Bäckahästen, the brook horse. Now, does Näcken become the brook horse? Are they two separate things doing the same tactic? So who was then the first to think of it, and how does the other one feel about being ripped off? Dude, what the hell? What? You know what? Oh, yeah. You're upset because I'm naked and playing the violin. Yeah, I'm used to that, but what? No, I don't care. Also, I thought it was a fiddle. But what's the difference? I mean, you tell me, you're the one who's playing. I mean, technically, I think this is its own thing, because I'm like a magical creature and shit, so I'm not like really, it's not really comparable to human crafted ones. Does it use horsehair? Huh? Your violin fiddle, does it use horsehair? I, I don't think so. Is that what's upsetting you? No, I'm not a regular horse. I don't care. I'm magical as well. So why so hostile? Cause you're stealing my bit, dude. I don't wear a bit. I'm not a horse. You know what I mean, asshole. I really don't. I saw you transform into a horse. When? Last night. Okay, so being a horse that drowns people is my thing. You have your naked music making whatever. I'm a horse that drowns people. I never said I drowned people. I just wanted to run around as a horse for a while. Sure, buddy. You don't have exclusive rights to drowning people and being a horse. No, but I have it on being a horse and drowning people at the same time. Well, that's fine, because I wasn't actually doing that anyway. But besides, I would only appear to be a horse and not actually be a horse like you. I told you I'm not a regular horse, I'm magical. So you're a magical horse that drowns people. I'm a magical man who can look like a horse that drowns people. I think we have some friends that also drowns people. It sounds like a crowded market, don't you think? You're saying we should branch out? Well, I mean, there's only so many people within drowning range. Well, feel free. I mean, at least you can play music and shapeshift. I'm just a horse. That reminds me, are we sure you're not just one of my forms? That's kind of fucked up, man. Yeah, sorry, buddy. Hey, do you want to go, like, drown some humans together? As long as I get to be the horse. Of course. And scene. I feel like we were going a bit, like, off the path there at the end, but which you should be careful about, because you might be lured to your doom. Which often seems to be a theme, and I get it when it comes to drowning, but the Brook Horse isn't about drowning. You'd think it is because of how it ends, but keep in mind, if you see Necken, you're by the water. But the Brook Horse can just be anywhere and isn't, like, related to water. It's a pretty horse that people want to try and tame and or ride on, and after getting on it, they can't get off, and the horse gallops to nearby water and jumps in. But that's not a warning to stay away from water. That's a warning to not get on strange horses you don't know, which, fair enough, that is also good to keep in mind. But does it happen, like, enough for it to ever work for the Brook Horse? I feel like they were just a horse that really wanted to drown people and so kind of, like, debated people into thinking their doom wouldn't be water related. Then again, apart from, like, kicking you in the head or throwing you off, I don't know how many other. I guess it could bite you. Maybe could you be bitten to death by a horse? Wouldn't it make more sense to have something like a rock spirit that hurls insults at people until they try, like, punching it, thus hurting themselves, and thus the insight is that you shouldn't punch hard things because that'll hurt you. Oh, and Skogsrån, the forest warden we talked about earlier, that makes you an introvert after sex. She's also known as Huldon, and depending on the region, she can have like a hollowed out back, like a tree trunk can have, which that's a creepy mental image, but would it matter all that much? The whole reason it's on the back is so that it's, not noticeable apart from us who are hearing about the story that know the plot twist. So, if anything, I think it would be more of an issue for her to have to live with than the other person who doesn't know and later gets scared because they find out. Like, would it affect me if I met them? Like, cause I don't think the hollowed out back would affect, like, if she had a hollowed out back, not me, cause well, even me actually, cause I rarely see or notice my own back, and it's often covered up anyway. And if nothing else, it would be a great space for storage. And who doesn't like room for more loot? Anyway, what does all of this have to do with banks? Well, it's a bit convoluted, but essentially, wait, sorry, it seems like we're ready to go over to recording audio. So I'm gonna have to actually leave you properly, finally leave you this. Well, me, not past me. Me recording now, which is also past, but not as past as the other me. We'll talk about this and explain and finish it next time. I really hope there's not a next time. Oh, really? We're not at the audio part yet? Turns out 20 minutes is like half an hour or something. Um, very well. I said I was going to explain the connection, and I will. It's just that it's a bit complicated, and sentences are already a struggle for me to string together, so who knows if this will end up, making any sort of sense, or if there'll be more questions for you than answers, but here goes. So, somewhere around the 900s, the 10th century if you prefer, these two things actually crossed paths. There was a nearly open bank here, that on a peaceful, let's say, Wednesday morning, had a customer come in and ask them for all their money. Now, they didn't demand it, they didn't threaten it, they merely asked for it. So we're not like robbing or thieving now, are we? I'm not sure exactly what the parameters are for it. Like, can't you just ask nicely? Is it a crime to ask? Anyway, the guy in charge, surprisingly, wasn't all that keen on fulfilling this request at first, until the man explained his origins. He claimed to be a tomte. I'm gonna have to explain that, aren't I? Briefly, a tomte is a magical being that would usually look over a farm. Some were apparently the first owner of the farm, and they couldn't rest after death. They had to, keep watch over their farm, and of course they'd, punish people if needed, reward them if they felt like it. And tomta were like known for pulling tricks on farmers. But there's two problems here. One, this wasn't a farm, and two, tomta are known for being like the height of an average bucket, and this was an average sized man claiming to be one. But the man had explanations for both. One, shapeshifting, because of course. Two, the bank might not be a farm now, but it once was, because, almost everywhere has been a farm at some point. And that was a pretty solid argument, at least in the 10th century, so the bank guy was in a bit of trouble. If he didn't give the tomte the valuables, then he'd anger a tomte, which is a really bad idea. But as mentioned, this is the 10th century, so the bank isn't run by a big corporation, it's run by the king. And kings, as a rule, aren't, too keen on giving up valuables, even if one of their servants will have to suffer a tomte as punishment. So what's a poor teller to do? He went to the king, of course, and told him everything, hoping, make this the king's problem. And the king had an answer. Send the guy to me. So shortly after, the supposed tomte arrived at the king's court. The king told him that, of course, he'd give him all the riches of the bank, but he asked the tomte to please understand that a lot of people try and deceive him. So for him to be certain, he would have to prove to him that he was in fact a tomte and not a fake. After all, that could be easy for the real deal, and the prize is worth waiting for, is it not? The tomte agreed, but said that he wanted to set the test, let's call them parameters, and the king was willing to hear him out on it. The tomte said the king should leave out a bowl of porridge overnight. Put your best guards on it. Come morning, the porridge will have been eaten by me, and none of the guards will have seen me. The king accepted those terms. The king had a bowl of porridge made, surrounded it by his best guards, and expected to find a full bowl and no return of the tomte the next morning. But not only did the tomte return, the bowl had been eaten empty. The guards had no idea how it happened. Now you think a king would be wise and give the tomte what they asked, but people with a lot of wealth tend to value wealth above all. And even though one bank wouldn't really be much in the grand scheme of his wealth, he simply couldn't stand the notion of having less. So the king told the tomte that while the porridge was gone, it didn't necessarily mean he was the real deal. It could have been rats. Please understand that, many try to get one over on me, and I'd hate to give the treasures to someone who doesn't deserve it, instead of, the tomte that has the right to it. You understand that, right? Of course the tomte understood and agreed. So the king offered, in his infinite kindness, to give it another go, but this time the porridge would not only be guarded throughout the night, it would be surrounded by a sea of rat traps. The tomte accepted and left. The next day he returned after the king had found the bowl empty, none of the traps set off, and none of the guards had any idea how it happened. Now the king became slightly worried that not only was this guy the real deal, but might actually have to part with, a fraction of his wealth. So he told the tomte that he was very impressed by him and no doubt believed his claim. Everything in the bank would befall him. But the king asked him for one last favor. The king said since he usually doesn't get to, meet the real deal, would the tomte please consider doing the honor of showing off his abilities one more time for another nighttime bowl of porridge? But this time, could he leave behind a piece of evidence that it was eaten by a tomte? The king would love to be able to show others how fortunate he'd been and to have a memento of this honor. And the tomte gladly agreed and left, not knowing that the king's plan was simple. Poison the porridge. It didn't really matter if it truly was a tomte. Dead things can't take his treasures. The next morning the king found the empty bowl and smiled to himself. Until the tomte showed up and was very angry. He scolded the king for not only trying to kill him, but worse, thinking something so rudimentary and common would be able to hurt him. No more games, king. Give me what I'm owed or suffer the consequences. See, the king might have been a greedy bastard, but more than that, he was a coward and folded fast and gave the tomte everything in the bank, down to the last speck of gold dust. And he counted his lucky stars while he was safe behind the castle walls. Meanwhile, the man rode out of town on a horse-drawn cart laden with riches. You know, minus the share he'd given to the guards to pull this whole stunt off. And that is the connector between banks and magical beings. You thought there wouldn't be one, didn't you? And you'd be right, because I just made that whole thing up to fill time. Any similarities with actual people, places, or events are purely coincidental. But now we should hopefully, finally, hopefully, be caught up to where we actually get audio back, so I'll see you there. And we're back to current time, although not so current that I'm live. Sorry about that little hiccup. I'm not entirely certain what happened, but I hope it's not the beginning of a recurring issue, but I do fear the worst. Although not as much as I fear being pulled underwater to my death by a magical being. Yeah, sorry, we're actually still not back to our regular scheduled programming, but we're close, I promise. Yes, I've been under the false belief that I'd reached the end several times at this point, but this time, it truly is at the end, or the beginning, if you'd rather look at it like that. We just need to fill a little bit more of time, but I've used all of our material. The only thing I have left is my 15-minute bit about airline food, but despite it being a groundbreaking and original routine, we simply don't have space for that. Next time, eh? Because let's be honest, this won't be the last time we get audio issues like this. Even if we get no more technical issues, I will undoubtedly forget to unmute again. As mentioned in New Vegas, I do really need some sort of plugin that just continuously blasts a really loud noise so that I know that I'm muted. It's a shame that the moment the mitten lurk showed up, there wasn't actually audio recorded, because it was rather funny. Because I went there because of the little tiny light. I literally fell for the anglerfish strat. I guess that confirms I wouldn't really make it as a fish. Which means I really need to update my list of animals I'd like to be born again as. I say born again because that's a lot easier to say than reincarnated. Apart from that one time. I mean, I guess I could settle with being reincarnated as a human drowning magical horse. Mostly because I don't know how to play the violin nor the fiddle. Then I wouldn't want to be a regular horse because that just seems like a back injury waiting to happen. Now, being reincarnated as a tomte, I'd be alright with that. I get magical abilities and free porridge. And the way I understand it, I get to do like fun farm things without worrying about getting up early and, acquiring farming supplies. So in other words, I'd mainly just be jumping into hay. Can a tomte be allergic to hay? Well, if we're unlucky and we find ourselves in a similar situation to this in the future, which we probably will, how about we find out the potential allergies and other ailments a tomte can suffer from? But now we have truly found ourselves at the point where we return to our previously recorded program. And don't feel bad about, doubting that statement. So do I. We're both about to find out whether it's true or not. Okay, as I was going to say before game audio was broken, imagine if you record for like 20 something minutes and you have no mic audio, which this time actually was not. Well, I guess I should have. Okay, so it wasn't me leaving myself on mute, but I should have noticed the fact that the captions doesn't auto like. You alright? That the captions weren't writing things, but this time it was just my little audio setup deciding, no, I don't want to work. Which, Focusrite, you're kind of kicking my butt. I would very much like it, because I've trusted you twice now, and you repeatedly kick my butt with things not working on 2 different devices. It looks very cool. It's a little red box. But fuck me if it's not freaking annoying to have to deal with constantly breaking. So, as I was saying, while no one could hear it, was one that I'm gonna have to go back and like record a voiceover for those 20 minutes of saying things just to have something, because I do not want to redo all those fights. Are you kidding me? What I was gonna say is we totally fell for the anglerfish thing. But what I also want to do, the reason I went back was because I wanted to see if, can we put down a, how on earth do we, I guess we put it down the same way you put down like a a mine. Oh man, I'm gonna... How do I do that? Oh, Alt. Ooh. How? I assume this is not gonna like do anything. But I want to just for the fun of it. Ooh. 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 Oh! You didn't even... You were not even like stopped by the... I thought at least it would like stop you and you go, "Ow, I'm stuck in this bed." Did you just... You probably just walked around it, didn't you? Like I did. Which, considering the odds that I could have very much stepped in it, it gives you one up on me. As far as like intelligence and survivability goes. I did that on purpose so I could come back and get that. Anything I'm missing? Is there? I think we've looted all of these corpses. Ooh. Anything? There is. I wonder if there's like a... That scared me. If each one has a... Based on how rare it is, if it gives more XP, or is it like... You've never made this before, hence more XP. Or is it just, you know, this one is easier to get the things for. Alrighty. So we still need to go this way. Buddy. Granted, you've had a day and a half in the last 20 minutes. Over here. In here, maybe? They look vaguely ominous. Hello. Oh. Oh. Since you were green, I thought you were going to be one of the ones that we fought earlier. So I was like, yeah, this is fine. You can't get up to me. Actually, you could. You could have just gone this way. Never mind. But you were, in fact, not. Thank you. Thank you. Jeez. Okay. Oh, that's not looting the water. That's just looting corpse part. Boom. Dog? That you, Churchill, or another dog? Because if it's you, that's kind of rude of it to just say dog. A fishing rod. Can we... Please don't push me into the water, thank you. I remember watching like a children's show. Jeez. Where they had really big chungus. Where they had... I didn't do that, did I? Not that I recall. Where they had these boats. You couldn't have said this when we were up here? Okay, you found this earlier and decided not to tell me. Because you... maybe you... I guess maybe you saw it. You have, like... I don't know. Do dogs have exceptional eyes? Ooh. Grab that. Thank you, Churchill. I'll grab that. Oh, buddy. Don't worry, I've looted it already. Don't think I can go in here. Hit any of these. Sacks, nothing. Okay, buddy. Back round. again, you could have said this when we were here, but that's fine. That's fine. You were going through a lot at the time. Are you? Right? No, no, no. Let's not do that. Oh. You know what? You can keep that. Don't know what that is, but we'll take it. Maybe we can make tea out of it. Oh, never learns. Neither do I, but like, that's beside the point. Don't change the subject. Oh, good. Speaking of, like that. Oh, well, we don't need anything more down here. We're going this way. Do one of those. Hello. What are you? You're just shiny. Okay. We gotta remember once we... I mean, I'm gonna forget, but we should remember that once we up our lockpicking, we gotta go back to the Jack the Ripper Museum. Oh, I haven't done this in a while. Oh no. Thank you. Took too long. Okay, okay. Oops. So we have a lot of words that have like T and H, right? Or maybe there's a T. There's another. Yeah, there's a lot of T. So take today. Okay, so it's gonna have to be something with a T in it. It was tough. Well, it wasn't, but it was. General Security Report, 19/10/2077. Nothing too exciting to report. Wouldn't this suck if this didn't record audio? It does, well, I assume it does, because I can see the captions going. Nothing too exciting to report today, aside from an incident that brought a chuckle to our surveillance team. A stray cat managed to wander into the bank's lobby and caused quite the commotion, knocking over a couple of potted plants and giving the patrons a run for their money. Fortunately, our security personnel swiftly handled the situation, and the bank remains as secure as ever. This before all hell broke loose? Today's security report yields no significant events. A bank teller managed to cause some disarray and evoke mild panic among the bank's patrons after throwing their pencil holder across the floor. A swift response from our security personnel effectively contained the situation, and the bank remained secure. You gotta fill something into these papers. Yeah. Oh, I was like, wait, load holotape. Another routine security report, folks. See, I told you. The convoy to transfer the bank's the bank vault's gold to the Bank of England has apparently set off and is scheduled to arrive tomorrow. Nothing out of the ordinary, and with no there's a lot of letters in that word. Yes, that was correct. Not a lot of words in that letter. Irregularities reported, but it's always good to keep an eye on these valuable shipments. Vigilance remains paramount. And it was 22. No unusual developments has come to our attention today. However, we've noticed something strange, though. They're asking us to empty the bank vault in a real rush this time. Did someone know something was about to happen before it happened? Normally, these processes takes weeks of planning and coordination, but this time they're pushing for a quick turnaround. Wonder what's up with that. Next one is, holy shit, there's bombs. In response to the recent incident, repair operations for the bank vault are in full swing already, and the situation outside has assumed a heightened state of emergency. Military personnel has cordoned off the surrounding area with the deployment of armored tanks. It's a real mess, but we're getting things back under control. Beep boop. Ah, that would be that, wouldn't it? I'll take that. I'll take that. Just in case we become. I was gonna say post-war, but I guess we are. That was not as impressive amount as I thought it was going to be. I don't think we're going in here. No, no. Turns out we're not. Okay. So, speaking of, wait, this is it. This is not the same then as unlocking, is it? This will be hacking, right? Okay, so there's at least two. Actually, I don't think this is master. We're probably not even advanced hacking. Oh, jeez. Okay, at some point we're gonna have to get back here